Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called, You Want Sirens? This is a story from a friend who works as an ambulance driver. They were working a night shift and had to go pick up someone who was injured. Given that it was the middle of the night, there wasn't really much traffic around, so there was no real need for them to put on sirens and lights to get through traffic. In this country, you only need to move aside for priority vehicles when they have both lights and sirens on. But most people aren't idiots, so they'll just move aside anyways if they see an ambulance that is trying to come through. So flashing lights were more than enough. And if they needed to drive through a red light or something, they would just turn on the siren for a few seconds to pass it. Because leaving it on in the middle of the night for no reason would do nothing but wake up a ton of sleeping people. The next day, the hospital received a stern phone call from the police chief. By some coincidence, he'd been driving the night before and he had seen the ambulance drive past with lights on but not the siren. He started a rant about how the ambulance should drive with full siren and lights on in an emergency, even if there was no real need to use them to get through traffic. So the next night shift, my friend is briefed on the phone call and that they now need to go full siren constantly whenever they respond to a call, even when it's nighttime, even when there are only 2 other cars on the road, so that there would be no need to make them move aside with the siren. They responded to 3 calls that night, each time putting on lights and siren the entire ride to and from the emergency. As in, they would turn it on as soon as they left the hospital garage, and only turn it off when they reached the hospital again. On one call they even left it on while they were at the emergency and loading up the victim. The next day, the hospital received a dozen angry calls from citizens living in the neighborhood right next to the hospital, as well as quite a lot of complaints from patients in the hospital about being woken up and kept up at night because their ambulance was moving out with the siren on constantly, when before they wouldn't do that at all. And the hospital superior was very happy to respond to all of them with, "I'm very sorry, but the police chief has very explicitly told us we are to keep the siren on at all times when we respond to an emergency. So there is nothing we can do." This, of course, directed all those angry calls at the police department next. Later that day, they received a call from the police chief that they didn't need to constantly use their siren, but only when it was necessary. The next story is called, You Want an Upgrade? Years ago, I worked at a hotel located right on a beach. Many people came in and tried to be upgraded to beachfront without paying for the extra cost. As this hotel is beachfront, there are 3 types of rooms overall. Beachfront is the most expensive side, and then city view, which is cheapest as some people don't want to spend the extra money for a view. When I was working night shift one time, I see someone booked a city view room. As we have empty rooms, the front desk staff can do free upgrades if they choose. I see this reservation and think, I will be nice and give them a free upgrade to the side and block them into a room on the 9th floor. The 9th floor is the highest we have, except for the 10th floor, the penthouse level. I moved him over closest to the beach, so he would have a great view. The customer walks in and immediately tells me that he has a beachfront view room booked. Now for those that do not work in a hotel, no one ever says this. They always say I have a room reserved. So immediately, I know that he is lying. I say, "Sorry sir, you booked a city view room." He tells me that he booked a beachfront and I explain that a beachfront will be more expensive. He replies that he was quoted this much and that's all he will pay. I tell him that I can upgrade him to the side and he replied with, "That is acceptable." This is strike 2, now I truly know he is lying. If he truly booked a beachfront, this would not have been acceptable. I change his room to the 2nd floor, and closest to the city as I can make it. This room was absolutely the worst room we had and the last one we ever used. The only time someone got booked into the room was when we sold out and no other choices were available. Instead of seeing a beach, he now has a wonderful view of our generator. My boss came in early that morning. I explained that if he gets a complaint from the customer, this is what happened. I told him what room number I was going to put him in, to which the boss goes, "You were being incredibly nice." As I finished telling him the story, the boss asked, "So where did you put him?" He knows I would never be nice to a jerk, as I had a reputation for dealing with such customers on many occasions. I tell him the room number and he immediately knew what I did to the customer and falls out of his chair laughing so hard. This is why I keep you around, entertainment value. No one but you would ever have thought to do this to a jerk customer. He continues saying, "The best part is that he thinks he scammed us and he screwed himself. If he would have just shut up, he had a great room. Now he has the worst room possible." The boss later told me that he never did come down to complain. The third story is called, I'll Do It. In many families, when it is time to eat, everyone gathers for the food to be blessed. In these families, it is usually the same few people who always do the blessing. In my family, it is usually my grandmother. She does a normal blessing. It only takes a minute, then everyone starts eating. However, at one big Christmas meal with my family and extended family, my grandmother had a cold and didn't want to speak. Everyone asked my father to say the blessing. He politely declined. They asked again. He said no. They started getting angry and loud and he agreed. At this moment, he hatched his plan, so that this would be the last time he would ever be asked to say the blessing ever again. He began. Dear Lord, thank you for this delicious-looking food. Thank you for the hands that prepared it. Thank you for the farmers who grew this food. Thank you for the ham and its amazing honey glaze. Thank you for the bees that made the honey for the glaze. Thank you, Lord, for the green beans. Please bless the sweet potatoes, as well as their enticing topping. He continued to bless every single thing we had to eat and drink. He blessed the Coke and Diet Coke separately. He even blessed the ice in the drinks and the ham bone that flavored the collard greens. During this blessing, everyone had to stare at the food and just wait, for it would be very rude to interrupt someone during a prayer. When my dad finally finished and said Amen, everyone sighed a breath of relief because it was over and we could now eat. Everyone agreed that he would never be asked to bless the food again. The next story is called, You Got It. This happened today while I was at work. I work at a gas station that has a pretty good pizza place in it, and tonight I was working pretty much alone, getting hammered with orders coming in non-stop. About halfway through my rush, an online order comes through and almost immediately the phone rings. I drop what I'm doing and go answer, expecting another order. But it was just a customer wanting to confirm that her online order had come through. I asked for the name and confirmed the order with Karen. It was one large all-meat pizza, and I very specifically remember confirming this because she said that was correct and she would be using a coupon for it. I didn't really think anything of it and went back to work, making the pies. Jump ahead about an hour toward the end of the rush and the phone rings. I again prepare to take another order, but instead am greeted by an angry customer saying that I messed up their pizza. I apologized and asked for the name so that I could look up the order, and she says Karen. It has not been that long and I remember the name saying absent-minded. I remember the order. You called to confirm and I remember we agreed the order was correct. Well, the order I put in was for all meat, but I wanted it with only double pepperoni on one half and only cheese on the other half. Okay, let me just pull up the record and we can get this sorted out for you. The only way to sort it out is for you to make me what I ordered. By this time, I had the order slip pulled up on the screen and could clearly see that there were no special instructions, but was not really looking forward to telling that to Karen. So I politely ask if she would mind holding while I talk with my manager to solve the issue, and she agrees. I head over to the manager's office and explain the situation to her. She is a very easygoing person and I love working for her because she will almost always just tell us to use our best judgment. She said to just make whatever she wants and I agreed. Back on the phone, I tell Karen that I would be happy to make the correct order for her and asked her exactly what she wanted. She said it exactly like this. I want a large hand-tossed crust with only double pepperoni on one half and only cheese on the other half. I repeated exactly what she said and was told that it was correct. I tell Karen to give me 15 minutes and she could pick up her pizza. I make exactly what she ordered. I rolled out the large crust, tossed it out to a large size, put it in a pan, added a layer of pepperoni on one half, then put cheese over the other half. I'm sure most of you know how a pizza is prepared and can tell that there was a skipped step in there. You know, pizza sauce. Karen did not ask for the sauce on the pizza and I made sure that I let my manager know that I made exactly what she ordered to help cover my backside when she called in to complain. When Karen came to pick up her pizza, I had my manager take it out to her and ask her if the order was correct reading from the slip. Large hand-tossed crust with only double pepperoni on one half and only cheese on the other half. Karen smiled and said yes, then took the pie and left. Jumped to the end of my shift and my manager let me know that Karen had called in to demand a refund for her pizza because it had no sauce and was dry. The manager refused because she went over the order with Karen before she left with the pizza and told her she got exactly what she ordered. The last story is called, Burnt to a Crisp. When I was 17 I started my first job in a tanning salon. Believe it or not, in some states, tanning salons are considered a medical facility. So we have to keep a strict record of our customers' sessions. Where I live, we are required to check people in using a form of government ID. I was about 3 months into the job when we had a very lovely woman stop in hopes of preparing for her upcoming trip to the Maldives. I chatted with her a bit and politely let her know that I will need to see her ID in order to get her account set up. She scoffed at me and said that's a violation of her privacy and she doesn't have to provide me with any sort of identification. I assured her it's a requirement and we can be fined hundreds of dollars if we do not see her ID. So, unfortunately, we would have to refuse her service if she is unable to provide it. She rolled her eyes and said that it's stupid but begrudgingly complied and rudely tossed her license across the counter at me. I kept a smile on my face nonetheless. After that, we have customers sign a consent and waiver that outlines the risks of tanning and also has the guest complete a skin tone chart so that the sales associate can get a good idea of how much time to recommend. I glanced over her chart and she had written that she was of Northern European descent, so naturally, I recommended a very low amount of time, seeing as she was likely to burn easily. She scoffed at me again and said that I have no idea what I am talking about. She said she is leaving for the Maldives in 3 days, so she needs to go for the maximum amount of time, 15 minutes. I said I strongly advise against that, seeing as 15 minutes in a tanning bed is a lot stronger than just 15 minutes in the sun. Patricia insisted that I was wrong and mumbled about the idiots that tanning salons always hire. I politely let her know that we are trained to suggest the safest amount of time for customers, and she almost certainly will burn. She brushed me off again, said she knows what she is doing and demanded full time. I mustered up my best customer service voice and said, "Okay, 15 minutes it is. Let me walk you back to your room." After the session was over, she took almost 25 minutes to leave the room. She sheepishly opened the door and gathered her things. Her face was as red as a tomato and her body was pink all over, meaning that by tomorrow she would be a peeling lobster who would likely need to avoid the sun for several days. She actually apologized for not taking my advice and asked if we had anything available for burn relief. I happily sold her a bottle of aloe vera and wished her a great vacation. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.